Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Welcome to another edition of Uncover California. I'm Lori Mills. You guys, Israel's at war with Iran. I do not want to get into another Middle East conflict. I really don't. But I do believe that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. I think that it would destabilize everywhere because they'd use it. I'm also very concerned that our border was open for as many years as it was under Joe Biden, and we don't know who's in our country. I support ICE. I support the raids. For all you lefty rioters out there, you kind of blew it because they were only going after the criminals and now everybody's game. Stop being your own worst enemy. We all want legal pathways for good people to be in our country. But the invasion that happened over the last 4 years has really compromised our national security. And with this new war with Iran, I'm concerned, and I have every right to be. So, anyways, that's enough of that. On today's show, I've got DHS and HHS whistleblowers, Tara Rodas and Aaron Stevenson. You guys, I'm pissed, as they are. Where are the kids? Where are all the missing migrant children? 350,000 went missing under Joe Biden. And today, they don't have a plan. They're not finding the kids. Only 5% have been found. It's unacceptable. Somewhere this administration needs to change course. They need to get the data released so that they can find these kids. All these sponsors need to be hunted down till we know each and every one of these children are safe. I'm going to have Eric roll a little tape right now.
Look what is happening right now. Look what is happening right now with these evil people. Obama, Hillary, Kamala, Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, all this team. There's more than 300,000 children, over 300,000 children that they came through the border, they released them, and we don't know where they are. Kamala, where are the children? Kamala, where are the children? You know, these people, Kamala and Biden, they're the biggest human traffickers in the history. And everyone knows that.
As you can see, where are the children? Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. But now I'm going to have to say, President Trump, you have to find these kids. It should be your number one priority other than not letting the world blow up. You need to form a task force within the administration. Get Tara Rodas on your team. Get Aaron Stevenson on your team and let them execute the plan to find these kids. My second guest today is Micah Kunkle. Now, Micah and I met doing Jubilee Middle Ground, and I saw him at one of those No Kings protests, which was the lamest thing I ever saw in my life. I was enjoying the Army's 250th anniversary, which was super cool. But I saw him out there interviewing people, so I thought it would be really fun to have him come in today. So you guys, we're going to have a loaded show. Put on your seatbelts. Let's roll. Who's ready to have some fun? You guys, you can now charter the Scarlet Belle paddle wheel riverboat. You guys, the boat holds 150 guests. If you're planning on getting married, you can host a wedding here. If you just want to have a good party, they'll do that too. The boat holds up to 150 guests with all-inclusive packages available. There also is a midweek group discount if you're interested. They have a fully stocked bar, full-service catering, and they'll help you with event planning and theme ideas. I can tell you we did a Trumptilla on this boat, and we're going to do it again. They also have another vessel that you can throw casino night parties on. There is nothing better than the Scarlet Belle in the Channel Islands Harbor. Use promo code CALI and get a great deal on your next event. Welcome back. Okay, you guys, the next topic is something I've been passionate about for a very long time. And if you've been watching this show, you know that. The kids that went missing, the migrant children that were trafficked to our country and more than likely sold into the sex trade. They're not finding them, you guys. They have found 5%. It's unacceptable. There should be a plan. So I'm going to bring in DHS whistleblower Aaron Stevenson, who discovered all of this, and also Tara Rodas. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to roll a clip of Tara before Congress. And guess what, Congress? A strongly worded letter is not going to do us any good. We need results. We need to find the kids. Roll it.
I thank you for inviting me to testify at this critical hearing on the crisis of trafficked, exploited, and the staggering 320,000 missing migrant children. Today, my goal is to spark action to rescue children, prosecute traffickers, and dismantle trafficking infrastructure. We must prevent children from being lost into slave labor, commercial sex, organ harvesting, and other unspeakable evils. And some may die today. Children, boys and girls are being sold for sex. Just last month, I spoke with a care provider in Florida who told me about cases of migrant children as young as 8 with sexually transmitted diseases. 8 years old. Last week, I spoke with a private investigator in Texas who shared challenges trying to find an emergency shelter for this one girl. She's only 12. An unaccompanied minor who was 9 months pregnant and about to go into labor. How did we get here? For over a decade, the United States Department of Health and Human Services has been responsible for the suffering of countless children. HHS has a 10-year demonstrated record of losing children to sponsors who abuse, exploit, traffic, and harm children in unthinkable ways. Child trafficking has evolved into an international syndicate of gangs and cartels. It's highly organized and efficient. It mirrors the tactics and operations of terrorist organizations. Smugglers and traffickers have moved more than 500,000 children. They flooded across our borders, and we have delivered them to criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations who are using the UC program as a white glove delivery service of children. Criminal sponsors are defrauding the U.S. government by using this government program as a logistical chain in their trafficking operation. These children are not merely victims, they are hostage of transnational criminals and the financial backbone of material support for organizations seeking to profit off of the lives of children. This simply must change. Now, there is hope if we act with urgency. Let's implement stringent penalties, like prison, for sponsors who are unable to produce the children they are in charge of.
Tara Rodas and Aaron Stevenson, welcome to Uncover California. Aaron, how are you doing today?
I'm okay, but I'm frustrated.
Tara, what about you?
I am very happy to be here with you, Lori, so that we can continue to spread the word.
Yeah, so about a year and a half, God, it might have been a year and a half ago now, Tara, you came in after you had been let go and escorted out of the Pomona Fairplex for discovering that these kids were missing. And since then, I've seen your testimony on Capitol Hill discussing this. I've watched both of you work so hard for these kids. Tara, right now, where do you see things at? Because I don't think anybody's seeing a lot of these kids be saved. Where are the children?
So, Lori, this is the sad truth, is it's very difficult to find trafficked children, which is why Aaron and the plan that he has been advocating for nearly a year now is to use a totally new targeting data solution. And this is what's going to have to be done. So to answer your question, Homeland Security Investigations is out. They are trying to find the kids, but they are trying to find kids off of the release address. So guess what? Trafficked kids are not at the release address. And what we need to do, and Tom Homan has mentioned that what we need to do is go after the sponsors themselves. Now, of course, this is not what HHS wants to happen at all. No one wants the sponsored data released. And because the sponsored data has not been released, it's causing children not to be found. So this is the push that we're trying to make, is that this data has to be released. It has to be put into the hands of highly capable, very qualified intel specialists like Aaron, and then the networks can be found, and when they find those networks, they find the children.
So, Aaron, you have been the point on all of this. You found all of this, and I'm sure that your level of frustration at this point is just maxed. Tell us what's going on, how, and be real. Totally tell us how you feel about everything that's happening, and what plan would you have to save these kids? And did you ever get into that database that you were not allowed to get into while you were working for the Department of Homeland Security?
So to recap what's going on is this is called failing. And I want to make sure this is actually clear, because I said this recently at an event and someone's like, hey, thanks for what you're doing. And I'm like, don't do that because we're failing right now. Like, just don't do that. And then they were like, oh, you got to stay positive, no, we are failing, and we're going to keep failing until we find a way to succeed. And that we have ways to succeed. We're just not doing it. So no, the current state of things is this is called failure, because the goal is to rescue the kids, not to raise awareness, not to red pill the normies. The goal is to rescue kids. The goal is to destroy trafficking networks. The goal is to dismantle the trafficking infrastructure, the systems that actually make the thing, right? Then a long-term goal is to actually change the policy framework, this patchwork quilt of law and court cases that legislate the whole thing, which created it to begin with anyways. So we are in the fail state right now. We have to accept that. And this is a thing that people hate hearing. So if your audience is hearing this for the first time, I'm sorry, I'm your messenger, because I know I don't come across very, what do you want to say, Tara? Like, I know I got a problem with this. I'm not the most easygoing, and I can accept that. But what's happening right now is we are failing. So what was the next part of the question?
The next part of the question is, were you ever able to get into the database that you had been locked out of? And what would be your plan moving forward?
It's the plan's simple. The plan is utilize this thing called targeting, which the US government knows how to do very, very well, and they've done it for a long, long time. This is the Iraq war. This is the Afghanistan war. This is going out and finding bad guys. There's a thing called tradecraft and how to do that. You get information, you synthesize it, and then you create a plan of action of how to find a bad guy. In Afghanistan, it's a little bit more complex, because they're trying not to get caught really hard. They've got guns and they shoot back a lot more. So you get creative on things. Dudes here in the country, they're not going to go rolling around with AKs and like turning off cell phones, shooting at cops. It's not going to happen. We can be way more aggressive, utilizing a lot of things that we have in our arsenal that I don't know why we're not. I don't know, because again, this is not even like a novel idea of targeting. This is just, okay, this is Machiavellian, I'll acknowledge. It worked over here. Let's apply it to over here, because that's how things usually happen. You find success and you replicate it somewhere else. And the idea is simple. You utilize all the information the government's collected of the sponsors, which is housed in HHS with biographic and biometric information and some behavioral information of the sponsor application. Well, all these people are legal aliens, so they've given a lot of information, believe it or not, into DHS for USCIS. This is the databases that I was in before as well, for the asylum interviews, the biometrics of where they come and go, a lot of information. They also sometimes have DOJ information when they're in deportation cases. You take all these things and you be an analyst and you figure it out, right? That's all this is. Now, on top of that, there's more information as well that you can get through law enforcement operations. Who was the dude, the Maryland man that was pulled over in Tennessee? Remember him?
Gilmore Garcia, the wife
There you
beating,
go.
child trafficking
Yep.
scumbag. Yes.
He was driving this thing called a car. Cars have these things called license plates. Cops have these things called license plate readers. Guess what you can do with a lot of license plate readers across the country? You can find traffickers on the interstate driving everywhere you want. People can be found like that. And I will do another demonstration of this by presenting J6. Okay.
Yes.
J6, a lot of people in the Capitol. J7, a lot of doors are getting kicked in. It's a joke to sit there and say that, oh, this is complex. This is it. Oh, the government's really corrupt. These things, when I hear these things, and I hear things like there's hiring freezes. No, there's not, because there's no hiring freeze for my old profession. There's no hiring freeze in my old agency. So I don't know why it's being said, but it's failure. And this is every step of the way. It's failure because the goals are pretty simple. Rescue kids, destroy networks, dismantle infrastructure. Those are attainable goals. Those are solvable problems, and we're not doing it.
And so your frustration is felt, I think, nationwide. I think for most of us, we all wanted to see these kids rescued. We wanted to see, oh my gosh, look at all the kids. And there really hasn't been any reporting on that. And just as you just said, with January 6th, they were able to track down grandmas in Alaska. Tara, have you seen any progress at all with finding these kids? I know Anthony Rubin had done a story where he pursued some of these addresses and he would come upon empty, vacant houses. And you knowing with your heart of hearts that these kids are being raped and tortured and possibly worse. What have you heard? Are you hearing anything positive?
Well, I will say when Anthony Rubin dropped one of his most recent videos on the kids, he found kids from the Pomona Fairplex. And those kids said, I mean, these were kids that I saw with my own eyes, and other people at the Pomona Fairplex saw with their own eyes. And those kids said, we are still being extorted today for the money. So that's 3 years later. Those children gave addresses to where they knew other children were being held. And so, yes, can the kids be found? Yes, they can be found. Most recently, Stephen Miller, he shared the story about how they were able to retrieve a child who was just 14. She was sponsored fraudulently. Surprise, we've been saying that's been going on for 4 years. Actually, and Aaron longer, because Aaron blew the whistle or began to blow the whistle within his organization in February of 21. So they know that these children are being sponsored fraudulently. And she was found, unfortunately, 14 years old, pregnant, raped, beat, she'd been trafficked. And yeah, they are finding kids in horrible situations. And yes, they are finding kids who are no longer alive, who they've handed over to members of transnational criminal organizations, like Aaron said in February of 2021, released that in August of 2021. I reported MS-13. We found it as a result of Aaron in September of 2021, and that's when I was escorted off of my job. So they know members of transnational criminal organizations that are now designated foreign terrorist organizations have the children. So these children, they're not just victims of crime. Yes, that's awful, but they are also hostages. They are hostages of gangs, cartels, foreign terrorist organizations. These people are no joke, and we need to go after them, and we have the ability. And this is why Aaron is frustrated and why I'm frustrated too. We have designated MS-13 as a foreign terrorist organization. Somebody go seize the data from HHS or from the contractor and go find these people, and they can.
So, Aaron, with you, I mean, this is what you do. This is your wheelhouse. I live in California. As you can imagine, you've seen what's been going on here in Los Angeles. None of these people think of these children. All they think about is anarchy and burning down the place and attacking ICE. And we have a Senate bill out here called SB 54. Now, with SB 54, law enforcement is not allowed to look for these kids. They are not allowed to look to work with ICE or immigration officials. It's really disgusting. Has our government come to you and asked you to help them?
No, that's not happened. And I'm saying this, by the way, going back to 2021. I have never been debriefed still to this day of like, like, hey, I was fired in 2020, I came up public, 2021, they knew about me, 2022 investigations, et cetera, 2023, I get fired. Not at one point in time did anybody come out to me and said like, hey, by the way, we don't trust you anymore. You're a leaker. You suck. But how did you find this out? What did you come across? Never happened. When I initially started this by contacting the other agencies, contacting law enforcement agencies, contacting intelligence agencies, are you guys tracking this? No, we're not. But on top of that, no curiosity, no follow-on questions. So, no, I've never been contacted or briefed or debriefed or solicited information on any of these things, which is, again, it's just fueling the frustration and it's kind of starting to bubble up a little bit. But I wanted to point out one thing Tara said about the foreign terrorist organization, because you're right. California created a state law and, by gosh, 10th Amendment supremacy, right? There's this thing called material support. And it doesn't matter if the guy is an alien or not, or illegal or whatever. If you are a foreign terrorist and there's material support happening, that's reportable whether there's a state law or not, because there's a thing over that called national security. So whenever I hear these things, I just go like, it doesn't matter. Like, and I will hammer this one. Your policy is always going to be your personnel. So, like, I'm just pointing this out by saying this is not a President Trump problem. This is not a Mr. Homan problem because they're up here, right? There's a lot of area now between down here. It's these people's problems. It's not even like the secretary, the assistant secretary, chief of staff. It's below that. It's the people that actually do the work. And that's where the problem exists because who is supposed to be debriefing me from 4 years ago through today? Though that giant gap in between of the federal workforce into the political positions, the political appointments. And it's going to keep happening until they actually address it. So, yeah, I'm a little hopped up right now, but I hope I'm coming across and explaining it well.
Well, and I find this so disappointing because the same thing happened, when I talked to Oscar Blue Ramirez, for instance, who's south of the border. And I asked him probably a month ago, has anybody asked you for your support or to tell the stories that you have? Because I consider him the expert on anything south of the border with the trafficking, with the NGOs. Tara, have we seen any of these NGOs like Catholic Family Services, Jewish Family Services, Key, is it Southwest Key, that were actually taking these children and being kind of the middleman and trafficking them? Have any of them been held accountable?
Well, Senator Grassley is attempting again to hold them accountable, and he is working on that. And anyone can go to his website. They can look at all of the new requests for information that he has sent out. He was completely stonewalled under the Biden administration. You may know that Senator Grassley actually went on the floor of the Senate and said, what I want to do is defund any NGO or organization that has been found to be sexually abusing children. If organizations are committing crimes against children, I want to defund them. Yeah, he was blocked by the Biden administration.
Well, and Aaron, we saw this with USAID. We know a lot of these NGOs were being funded by our tax dollars. Where do you think the biggest failure in this lies? The Department of Justice, where are they? The FBI, where are they? It would seem to me finding children that are being abused and possibly killed would be top priority. And what a win for this administration to find 300,000 children. There would be nothing better.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the purpose of a system is what it does. And this is a great point, by the way, because the administration should get credit and kudos for what they did to USAID. Awesome job. Great. That proves to me things can happen fast, because that's one other trope people kind of just fall into, which is like, oh, government's slow though. No, it's not. Government's strikingly fast when it chooses to be. If you want to get new war spending, there's not a whole long time for that. I don't recall TARP going through like a 3-month period of, debates and everything else. If the government wants to do a thing, it can happen at lightning speed. And USAID is a prime example of that. So good job on them. So why isn't it happening somewhere else? And again, I go back to it. This is a policy as personnel. So what's happening and why? I have to chalk it up to either, I don't know, not smart enough, not talented enough, or they don't have the personnel support behind them. And it's probably number three. You can't do a job without people doing the actual work for you. And can I actually squeeze in this really quick? I used to work at USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. Okay. And the president, since he's been inaugurated, has done several executive orders and some other, policy type maneuvers to be like, hey, I want X, Y, and Z done in immigration. Got it. One of those things is like updating criminal records into the system of record for each alien. So it's like, hey, Tony over here is a terrorist. Update the record. Juan over here is a cartel member. Record. They're not doing it. I talked to friends who still work there, and they just told me straight up, no, yeah, people aren't enforcing it. They're just not doing it. And this is the problem, because you describe these situations where the workforce is just not gonna do it, and people will fall back and say like, oh, well, Doge is gonna figure it out. This is not a Doge problem. Doge finds financial problems and fraud. This is a personnel problem that has an ideology opposing the president. And that's what the problem is right now. They don't have a workforce that's gonna do this mission. Um, and I'm saying that, by the way, on this can just kind of cascade very, very far. RFK, Secretary of HHS, he created a couple rule changes, good on him, doing things like we saw the end result of, I think this was the DNA collection, Tara, right? They're going to say like, hey, I want DNA collection again. But we have no idea what he said from his mouth to what the rule change came out to be. Because the guy that wrote the rule change is the same guy that wrote a previous rule change, which was going to codify all the problems to begin with. So like, this is a problem of personnel also. Like they have to get that fixed. And I haven't seen anything on that. And by the way, just to squeeze one more thing on this, yes, they've fired a lot of people. And I know this was especially from DHS. Those people have a higher rating to get rehired, even over like veterans who are disabled. So yeah, they fired people, but those people have priority now to come back in the government for rehiring. This happened at the DHS Expo. Friends of mine also told me that HR is like they're screwing things up, which is slowing down the hirings from that hiring expo. And this is why I recommended doing things like direct hire authorities, how to build a workforce quickly, and how to do so with key personnel, because this is not a plum data book problem where you have to get political appointees into a job. This is you. We don't need this. Is this. You need someone who's going to go in the office and actually get things done, and they don't have that. They got people in policy making decisions, writing policy. Cool, go enforce policy. They don't have people doing that, and that's where we're at right now. So,
Tara, have you looked at becoming part of this administration, or either of you, but I'll direct this to Tara. Have they asked for your help? I look at people like Victor Marks, who basically goes out and rescues kids. There's so many independent agencies that'll do this work. Why doesn't our government contract them? Why aren't they pulling in the experts? Because again, I consider both of you probably the top expert on what happened. And there are people that do this work. Why are we not contracting with this? Why are we not putting these faces up on the television screen? What do you see that could be more effective?
Well, Aaron and I have had some conversations with people. We'll see where all of that leads. But I think it would be really important for people to understand what Aaron was talking about in terms of personnel. That
Right.
personnel is your policy. And HHS, remember, HHS is the keeper of the data. They have all the information on the child and the sponsor. They've got pictures of who the sponsor is, their passports. They've got all this information. So HHS is not, I want to repeat, is not a law enforcement entity.
Right.
HHS does not have law enforcement authorities or investigative powers. HHS, there are people there who actually believe that what we are doing in the UC program is a humanitarian thing. They are so deluded, they have so drunk the Kool-Aid, as they say, they actually think that they're doing a good thing. So they're going to continue to do it. They're going to continue to stonewall. They do not want to give over the data. And without the data, I don't care how great your rescuer is. It doesn't matter. If the rescuer doesn't have the data to go after the right people, the children are not going to be saved. And this is where the pressure needs to come. We need people at HHS who know the databases. We need people at DHS who know the databases, who know how to synthesize the data, who know how to do data collection and targeting and go after it. It can be done. It can't be done with the staff that they've got right now. And they're aware of that.
So,
Can
Aaron,
can I jump in and answer that question
yeah,
as well?
please,
So
please.
my answer is no. I've never been contacted. And also, yeah, Tara and I have helped out with white papers. We've helped out with concepts. We've helped out with briefing material. Like we've done a lot of things for a long time. So to answer that question, like this is not a Tara and Aaron problem right now because we are doing all we can.
Right.
Um, and and yeah, I want to make sure that was at least answered though. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Well,
continue to talk to people all around Washington, D.C. Yeah, and happy to talk to anybody. When people call, we pick up the phone, and we've been happy to help. We've talked with various rescue organizations as well, and we're here to do anything we can. And there's not anybody who we've talked to thus far who has access to the sponsor data. So therefore, we're not going to find the kids. We must use a targeting solution, as Aaron explained. We find the trafficker, we find the children. The traffickers are moving the children. The children don't have license plates typically, right? We can't get into all the trade craft, but guess what? It's easy to track down people. As Aaron said, it can take a day or two and they're kicking indoors when they decide that they're going to go after somebody. We can do this. And there are people who want to,
and
okay? There
and
are
I'm
people in the administration who want to make this administration make history by launching the largest child trafficking operation stopper, right? They want to do the largest child rescue. So they want to stop what's been happening and they want to start doing a new thing, and they need personnel with qualifications to do that. They just don't have it yet.
And
go
can
ahead.
I want to expand on this now too. So this is a very important thing as well. A lot of times this conversation is framed as like, gee, 325,000 missing kids from the unaccompanied child program. That's true because that's the unaccompanied child program. There's this thing called a border though, and not every child went through this unaccompanied child program. So the real number, the true number of migrant children getting trafficked is unknown due to the kids that got smuggled across the border not going through this program. It doesn't count for kids that went through the family unit as, total fraud cases. So you're never going to find those kids until you start targeting the trafficking networks. And this is where it's just like this has been the biggest problem. Some people get it, and I'm not going to be offensive about this, but I've also talked to people that, allegedly have access or whatever. And you talk about targeting, you talk about intelligent solutions, and it just goes deer in the headlights. And it's just like I'm talking over someone's head at this point. So I'm not going to throw shade at people, but personnel is policy. Like this is not happening because the people aren't there to do the job. So
And I'm wondering, Aaron, sheriffs are elected. Sheriffs are supposed to follow the Constitution over state law. And as you had stated, we do have license plate readers. I am finding it very hard to accept that they have not put together a coalition to find these kids. It honestly breaks my heart. I sit here and I'm thinking about what even right now one of these kids could be going through. And it should be the top priority of this country to find these kids. And I think it's going to be an epic failure if this administration doesn't address this. What is your thoughts on that?
yeah, so that one, okay, so I blew the whistle on this problem, right? With like, hey guys, watch listed cartel members who are now also actually foreign terrorist members. But you have this watch list called the Transnational Organized Crime Watch List, and there's dudes on there and women that are getting these kids. Problem. Well, part of that also thing is this watch list was capped at 40,000 people. So yeah, you've got sheriffs that can do this job, but they're looking at a database basically of 40,000 people. So this is what I mean by like You don't have the personnel in place to do this job. Step one, while the information is getting seized to start doing watch listing operations, is you literally unchoke the watch list, you remove the cap, and you let the Terrorist Screening Center and the National Targeting Center start doing their jobs. And it's not just start doing their jobs. You get a guy in there to crack a whip to force them to do their jobs. It's called forced overtime. It happens, and you just got to start doing 24-hour shifts to get it control of the information and start arming law enforcement in this country with watch listed material for them to go target the trafficking networks. And this is a thing that people don't understand either. When it comes to finding people, you don't always just have to pin down the location. You don't have to know the guy's like, little foxhole where he's bunkered in and you can't find the guy. You can also do things like make them move. Because when they're moving, what are they doing? They're using their credit card to buy stuff. They're using their cell phone, which we can collect on, their email address for hotel reservations, their car, which they drive that has a license plate. There's a lot of ways you can do a lot of things. And it's called being aggressive. And that's the mindset you have to have. That's how you go. And now you have to do more so. But that's how you win this thing is you are the aggressor. It's not, oh, gee, the government's really corrupt and they still haven't given us the data yet. That's your problem. That's your problem to solve. And if you can't solve it, then maybe you shouldn't be doing this thing then. So that's where I land.
Wow. Tara, is there any action by Congress? Because again, they can't enforce the law either. They could write some really harshly written letters, but is there any laws that they could pass to force the search of these children?
Congressional routes are slow, and that's what every senator and every House member will tell you. To fix this with a congressional solution it's too long. What we need is the solution that exists right now, which is simply to watch list the sponsors. So the reason why, and I want to make sure this is clear, Homeland Security Investigations has been out there. They have brought people back into service who specifically just wanted to do this mission of finding the children, but they've only been able to find 5%. So I want to make it clear, there are great Border Patrol people, Homeland Security people, Homeland Security Investigations. There are people out there, they're only able to find 5% of the kids because they're operating off of the last known address where the child was. The children get moved. They're never going to be at that last known address. So again, they need to change the way they are trying to find the kids. They need to shift to going after the trafficker themselves, which is the sponsor, which is what HHS does not want to do. Why is that? This is what most people don't know. Over 90% of the sponsors are illegal. So in the midst of all of the problems with this illegal immigration, the last thing the American people want to hear is, oh yeah, by the way, those 320,000 missing kids, plus all the other ones in the fake family units. I mean, we're talking, it could literally be 1 million children by the time you include the ones that they're also picking up out of the US. I mean, think about how many children have disappeared in foster care and CPS and all of that. I mean, how many children we're talking about? I'm sure is it no less than 1 million.
And
so, they can go after it, and they can, and they must.
Aaron, go ahead.
And to respond to the congressional part, because you are right there, by the way, that's one thing where I will agree. It's like, yep, government's going to be slow right there, because that problem is actually a few different fold. This whole unaccompanied child program is governed by no less than 3 different pieces of law, right? You can't even call it legislation. Number 1 is the Flores Settlement Agreement. Now, I know that the Trump administration, they are trying to undo that and win a case, whatever. So figure that out. 1 is the Flores Settlement Agreement. 2 is the Homeland Security Act of 2003, the HSA. That's part of the process, which then governs how DHS operates with these unaccompanied children. Then you also have add-on things which govern it, things like the TVPRA of 2008, things like other executive orders that have come into place, how to report information. So the whole thing isn't working, right? So you have to, for the executive, stop doing that, create a new system, and do that for as long as you can and go after certain things. And then the legislative body, Congress, yeah, they have to create a new system. And I don't think that they're capable because I don't think they understand the information. Because I've read the reports and it's like, hey, good exposure, but you're short here, you're wrong here, and you're slow here. That's not good enough for me. So I think we're treating this like a tertiary issue, nowhere near the forefront of significance. And I think we've been doing that for probably 25 years now. So
Wow.
that's part of the problem.
Yes.
Okay, so you guys were already through our time. I do want each of you to be able to give a strong message. What do you want to tell the people? How can we, as the citizens of the United States, apply pressure in this? Tara, do you want to go first and then let everybody know where they can find you?
Sure, you can follow me it's my handle's right on there. That's Tara Rodas on X. That's where I keep things on trafficking, at least some of the most updated information. And what I would ask your listeners just to think about is, why is the United States of America canceling the parental rights of parents around the globe to take possession of their children and release them to unknown people here in the United States? If people think that parental rights don't matter, this is part of the problem in California now, and it's coming across the country. There are people who view children as property, and so we need to go after this. But as far as finding these unaccompanied children, we need to ask, should we even run a program like this? I don't think we need to take parental rights from people, but to find the children who are already gone, they need a targeting solution of the sponsors, and they need to demand today, not tomorrow, not next week. They need to demand today that the sponsor data be turned over. The sponsor data, all the data that includes their passport photos, their consular IDs, and everything else. And then we'll be able to find the kids.
Okay, so Aaron, as Tara was saying, who do we need this data turned over to? Is there a phone number that people can call to blow up their phones and just apply pressure? Who can they write? Who can they call? And then your last words and where you can be found.
I don't believe in that. I don't believe that this is the people's problem. And also on top of that, I'm actually going to kind of throw some shade on the people right now because I've seen what the people have done. Tara and I and other whistleblowers, we led an effort to get the people involved to stop a federal rule change. 1 million people saw this campaign, and we couldn't even get 75,000 people to sign on a copy and paste effort we gave them to stop a rule change. So it's not the people's problem because also the people don't act. And also, I'm actually going to make another appeal here. Please stop saying things like wood chipper on Twitter, because no one's ever thrown a pedophile into wood chipper. It's like, number one, for the people, start being serious about this topic and like stop treating it like a meme, because that's really getting like, hey guys, talk about failure. Like that's key failure. This is not meme warfare time when it comes to, kids getting raped. So that's number one. Number two, I'm not going to say don't write your congressman. Let me know if my 2 senators and representative are going to ever call me back. I live in a red state and a red district. We can talk offline on that one. Number three, this is an executive problem for finding the kids. So I know I'm not going to get my job back at this point. I'm kind of blackpilled on that one. I'm more than happy to help them out. I'm happy to go in there and set the system up for them, give them the concept, run them through it all, and give people the glory that, whatever. I'm okay doing that. I really don't care. I want the kids found, and all current trajectories show that ain't happening. Now, the other important things, because this is a key holdup, I think, which is causing an issue, is once you find the kids, then what do you got to do with them? And this is where things like America's Future are important. This is where things like Shepherd's Watch Foundation, I forget their names so many times. This is where organizations need to be existing to where they can okay, we found the kids, now what? Because no offense, government kind of sucks there, right? So yeah, you have to have, I think, Christian foundations, which can care for kids while we can figure out if they can go back to their families, how to find their families, the logistics involved in that, all those things. So that's important for the people. So support shows like you, support, efforts that, America's Future does and whatever else. That's more important than anything else. Do not call Congress. You're going to waste your time. If I see you saying things like wood chipper on Twitter, I will go in your comments and trash talk you because I don't think you're a serious man doing that. I really will actually kind of call you out. Yeah, that's the main things. And again, like I'm willing not even to take my job back because I know I'm not going to get it, but I'm willing to go there as an unpaid servant, give them the solution, walk them through it, make sure that they're good and they're off the training wheels, and they can go from there. And to be fair, there's dedicated people that can do this job as well. They don't have access and they don't have the authority. So that's my very long answer on that one. And I hate being long-winded. If you've ever seen me before, I'm usually very condensed.
No, I
Um,
appreciate it. I truly appreciate it. And uh, where can people find you on social media, Aaron? And I agree with you. This is too serious to make memes about. This is no joke. Um, these
yeah,
are kids. These are freaking children. And again, should be a top priority of this administration to find them.
yeah. You can find my shadow banned account on Twitter. It's at DHS Aaron. Most people never see it. I'm shadow banned. But yeah, and this is the thing I said in my 2021 disclosure, which was almost 4 years ago now, because that got aired in August 2021. I say children are the most vulnerable population of any society, and that's true. They can't defend themselves. It gets worse when they can't speak English. It gets worse when they know adults will harm them. It gets worse when they're a product of their own experience, and that experience has been trauma and exploitation and rape and beating and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we need serious men and serious women to do serious things. And we're just not there. We are currently failing right now. And to anybody that wants to cope and say, like, no, we haven't succeeded yet. Yeah, that's called failing. And we need to change course because current trajectory is just, it ain't good enough. And I don't believe in a society that treats children like this. I'm a Christian. And I believe that if we are, believe in free will, if we're choosing to do these things and fail, I see a bad future because I think I know what happens. I think I know what happens to a society that will allow this. So,
100%, I agree with you. I will say right now to the TV and the audience out there, I'm willing to walk away from everything to help if I can. I am really bad with data, but I would help on this issue 100%. It breaks my heart what we're seeing. And I don't know why these predators are being protected. But I do want to thank both of you so much for your time. I would love for you to come back on. And I really hope the next time you're on, we're starting to see movement with this. And you are always welcome here. I actually would love to have you both out here to Ventura County. I'll throw an event around you. But I think awareness is so important because I think this is something we can't let go of. It's something we can never forget. And God judge us if we do, in all honesty. We do not deserve to have a country if we're going to sacrifice our children and other people's.
yeah, concur and endorsing.
So thank you, Tara. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, we'll talk soon. Okay, everybody. After the break, we're going to bring in Micah Kunkle, and he's going to talk to us everything Jubilee, Middle Ground, and issues that matter to the American people. Stay tuned. Hey, everybody. I don't know if you've been supporting the show by going to themagamall.com, but I just got my new Doge hat. I love this hat. He's got so many new designs. He has Maha. He's got ice hats. But anyways, remember to go to themagamall.com. And if you use promo code Kelly, CALI, you'll get a really good discount. Check out the Doge hat. Everybody needs one.
That all human life, regardless of the point of its development, including a unicellular zygote, is just as valuable. That's insane.
But you're putting a barrier on what is a human being.
No.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm
That's
already
what
told.
you have to do.
No.
And I mean, we all put the barrier somewhere. Pro-lifers say.
I will clarify again.
has
It's a
to
human
be-
being from the moment of
Can
conception.
I finish?
Not all human beings are valuable, of course.
What I was saying is we all put the barrier somewhere. And so pro-lifers are going to put the barrier on conception because that is when it is an independent human being. But you're putting the barrier on consciousness. And I'm saying...
It's true.
So if you're going to put the barrier there, the problem is that the result of that view is that people with less consciousness have less value.
But if you deploy more consciousness than another human, that doesn't mean you have more value than them. Any level of consciousness, right, is going to yield the same amount of value as the next. I think that as soon as a fetus gains this ability to deploy these first-person subjective experiences, that they have just as much value as you not.
Deploy consciousness. So what about if you have someone that is unconscious, that cannot deploy consciousness?
Well,
Can we just kill them?
Welcome back, everybody. Well, this next gentleman, he's an independent journalist, and he is quite the debater, as you just saw on his clip. Well, Micah and I met each other because we've both done Jubilee Middle Ground a couple times. He's an intelligent man, and he has a lot to say on a lot of different issues. Micah, welcome to Uncover California.
It's good to be with you, Lori. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Oh, totally. So you and I both got to debate Little Dean. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting one. He likes to talk a lot, but he doesn't do a lot of listening. And I think even with the last clip on abortion, you really had him. I mean, to have him say that there's no value in life unless there's consciousness it's just kind of crazy to me. So what is your take on abortion? I know out here we're in California and it's kind of no holds bar out here and it's very sad. What is your take? You are pro-life.
Yeah, I'm pro-life. And so I'm pro-life from the moment of conception. I think philosophically and scientifically, that is the only morally justified place where we can say human life begins at. And so if they are a human being and a human person, they have individual human rights, and specifically the right to life that needs to be protected. And if we violate that, that is what we call murder. And so that's just my basic stance. But it was really interesting. And I'm sure you have felt this too. Like in the heat of the debate, you end up like missing some things that your opponent says that you wish you could have nailed them on. One thing for me was when Dean said that they were human beings, but not all human beings were valuable. That, like, in the heat of the moment, and he was also interrupting me, so that played a role in it too. But I totally missed that, and rewatching that, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is such a terrible statement to say that not all human beings are valuable. That seems to go against our foundation of morality, the foundation of our country. So I just thought that was absolutely insane.
Well, the one thing I would probably guarantee you that Dean thinks the value of Kilmore Garcia, the wife-beating, child-beating, human trafficking guy from El Salvador's life, has a lot of value. It's kind of interesting how skewed their perception is, but I totally agree with you in the sense that when you're on Jubilee and you're on the spot like that, you have to come up with things off the cuff because we don't know what we're going to talk about and we're not allowed to talk before we actually are on set. So many times I've gone back and said, oh my gosh, why didn't I say that? Or I misspoke and it came out wrong. It's kind of, it's a fun experience. I like doing it. And it was great to meet you there. Now,
yes, it was good to meet you.
Yes. Now, also, I did notice that you have been hitting the streets. You went to the riots in LA and you were interviewing people. So tell me, what was that experience like? Were you attacked or were you able to drum up any conversations where you were maybe able to find a middle ground, or is it just, tell me about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, to clarify, I wasn't in like downtown LA.
Okay.
Mainly because if I didn't get killed there, my wife would have killed me back at home for putting my life in danger. So I did not do that, but I did go to Anaheim, which is just about an hour outside of LA. And they have a big Mexican population there. And so the protest ended up being mostly about ICE and immigration. And there were some signs about Trump, but ultimately whenever I asked them like why they didn't like Trump, it went back to the immigration issue. So everyone was there protesting immigration. Um, and so, yeah, I just was going around asking questions. I was trying to be super respectful. And to be honest, that was my first time going to a protest and asking people questions. I've been on like the streets and gotten into conversations a lot, but I've never actually been to a protest to ask questions. So it was really interesting. So I just kind of wanted to, ask questions, see what they had to say, see if there was anything really, I don't know, intelligent that they had to say, any good points. Um, and what I found most of the time is that people just didn't really want to answer my question at all. And I posted a clip in particular on social media where I asked the guy about whether we should follow the law and whether there should be punishments for people who don't follow the law. And when I asked him that, he goes, "I see where you're going." And then he goes, "I don't want to answer that question." So
course not.
we didn't, yeah, of course he didn't want to answer it. But so I got some of those responses, but I also just got a lot of like, I would ask a question and then they would bring up something completely irrelevant too. Now, as far as like, did I find any middle ground with people? I really like a few conversations into it. I was like, man, I want to believe that like these people are good-hearted. So I want to try to find some sort of middle ground to make myself feel better, like that these people aren't malicious or evil. They're just ignorant, right? And so I tried really hard to get to middle ground, and I was able to get to middle ground with some people. Some people, it was, yeah, there should be some restrictions on immigration. For some people, it was, yeah, we should deport criminals, people who committed extra crimes after the illegal immigration. We should deport those people. So it was encouraging to get some of those middle ground answers. And it gave me a little bit of hope that there's at least some people that are willing to engage in conversation and are somewhat reasonable.
Well, and it's crazy too, because you know as well as I do, over the last 8 years now, since they wouldn't let him build the wall, I did middle ground just a couple weeks ago where now the people on the left want to build the wall. And I'm like, am I going nuts here? But I just feel like a lot of these people have been lied to and by the mainstream media. And that's part of the problem. A lot of, you can lie by omission, and the media does that a lot. I'm sure a lot of these people don't know how many people actually crossed our border. I'm sure they don't know. Many of them came from China, from the Congo, from Afghanistan. And not only that, they trafficked 350,000 children into our country. And these are the same people that were saying he's putting kids in cages that Obama built. Yeah. So the misinformation coming from the left in the mainstream media, I think, has really hurt this country. But the one thing that you just said, I found interesting, and it's true. How do we get past the division in this country if the other side is unwilling to have an honest conversation?
Yeah, I mean, we can't. Like, an honest conversation is the only way forward, which is why, I want to try to participate in conversations where there is an honest conversation. And a lot of political debate and conversations is not filled with good faith debate. I know of multiple Democrat Jubilee debaters that are very anti good faith. They're not good faith debaters at all. They don't go into
Parker, Dean. Who's that other guy that talks super fast? The guy that he doesn't shut up. I forget.
Well, there's a lot of them. So
yeah.
But
come on, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, well, a lot of the ones that come back that are recurring are ones that aren't necessarily good faith. And what's really interesting is I've talked to some of the Democrats that been in the Jubilee videos that are good faith, and we have great discussions all the time. And even though we disagree, we both raise points and we both say, yeah, you know what, I can see where you're coming from if that was true, but I don't think that's true, and this is why. And so that's the way forward. But it starts with, you know, assuming the person has good intentions, I think. And we were on this middle ground together, the 20 Democrats versus 20 Republicans. And I don't know if you
That was a
remember what I
big
said
one.
to that was huge, yeah. Or I think it was 30. I think there was 60
Yeah,
people
there
there. It
were
was
too
crazy.
many people. There were too many
For
people. I was
sure.
actually really annoyed that day.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you remember what I said to Parker
I do.
on that video, but I specifically talked about how his question tried to frame Republicans as bad guys. But we've got to stop framing political debates like that the other side is just purely evil and they just want to destroy our country. Now, of course, there are people on both sides that want to do that. But oftentimes, those are not the people that are in the debates. I think there's more politicians that are corrupt that way than there are commentators that are corrupt that way. Um, but nonetheless, you don't go in assuming that's what they want. You assume good intentions, and then if other evidence or their actions pop up that makes you think otherwise, then you can go ahead and say, no, you're not good faith at all. And that's Parker was trying to do. He was trying to assume everyone's intentions and heat up political conversation when that's not the way forward for Democrats or Republicans.
You know, there are a few topics though I won't compromise on. One of those being
Hmm.
the transitioning of children.
Well,
And
so on that,
I have been on middle ground, and I think it was the middle ground, the big one. And there was a woman, well, it was a man who identifies as a woman. Uh, I can't even remember his name, but was saying that children should be able to have sex changes early. And I cannot accept that. I will never come to a middle ground on that topic. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah, well, I think you're correct. As far as it comes to like your actual positions, there are positions that you just need to stand for and not compromise on. You don't need to compromise your positions. But it's a common, I think, lie that we have to compromise on positions in order to have civil dialogue. I don't think that's the case at all. We can still treat each other with respect while still being very brutal as far as our ideas go, right?
Right.
Very brutal and saying, no, your ideas are leading to the mutilation of children. Your ideas are leading to millions of unborn children being killed. And that's we can still do that with respect towards one another. And so I'm not asking anyone to compromise, right? But I am asking that we try to find we try to not even necessarily find a middle ground, but that we at least engage civilly with one another.
And I would agree with that. Every
Yeah.
time, I've been on middle ground, I'm usually the grandma of the group and I don't care. It's totally fine. Sometimes I
Yeah.
wonder if there's a disconnect, especially with the immigration system.
Mm.
I talked to James about this when he was on, but I'm old enough to remember in detail where I was when 9/11 happened. I
Mm.
remember the Oklahoma City bombing. I remember ISIS setting people on fire and chopping off their heads. And it seems to me a lot of the people that are on middle ground, and God bless them, they're as young as my kids, and that's great. But sometimes I feel like that there's a little bit of a disconnect, like because they have not experienced something so brutal where it literally shakes your core and you're like, oh my gosh, did that really just happen? Do you think that there's a little bit of a disconnect due to that?
Yeah, I mean, for sure there is inherently going to be a disconnect if, you didn't, if you weren't, if you don't have memory of these events, right? Like I was alive during 9/11, but I
How
don't
old
have
were
any
you?
memories. I was a few months old. I
See?
was born in
Exactly.
June of that year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 100% it starts off with a disconnect. But that's why teaching history is so important. That's why we have to teach American history and we have to do it well. And like personally with me, I was homeschooled. And so my mom made sure that we knew all about, not just world history, but American history in particular. And we went to Washington, D.C. We saw the Constitution. We saw the Declaration of Independence. We read books on the founding of our nation. We watched movies and documentaries about it. And 9/11 was also something that was really important that my mom taught me and my siblings. Every 9/11, we would watch something on it or we would read a book. And so that helps the disconnect to go away because I'm reading about it. I'm seeing people's stories. I'm seeing the same videos and images that people saw on that day. And I'm able to reconnect with that. And that's why I think it's very important that we study our history.
Well, that's one thing I will say, though, in all honesty. The first couple years after 9/11, it was unfiltered and brutal. And what I've noticed is over the years, they've softened it. Like,
Mm,
they don't show a lot of the things that we saw closer to the actual event. But, even with the border situation and the immigration situation, which is super heated right now, all these people were silent when 20 million people came across our border. They said the border was secure. And then when Kamala was installed to be the nominee for the Democrat Party because democracy, they they didn't they said, "Oh, well, now we're going to secure the border." There doesn't seem to be any respect for law. I mean, the bottom line is it's sad that people came here the way that they did, but 8 U.S. Code 1325 is pretty clear. It's a federal crime to cross our border illegally. Now, I
yes.
do understand that we do have people that have been here for 20, 30 years. A lot of them got stuck here because we used to have work programs that were decimated. So they didn't want to go home because then they couldn't come back.
Yeah.
But why do you think that there's such a disconnect? Do these people still believe that the invasion didn't happen because it was an invasion?
hmm Yeah, I mean, I just think people are really unaware. Um, and especially in California, right, when the communities are like there's specific communities in California that are primarily Mexican. Um, the issue doesn't become objective to them. It becomes emotional to them because, they are Mexican themselves and they have Mexican friends and they're growing up in this community. And so then the media lies to them about like, oh, ICE is going in and just separating innocent families and doing all that. It's like they hear that and then they get emotional about it and then they can't think objectively about it. And so um that's the problem is the lies from the mainstream media then turn into emotion for these average people and they don't know about how many immigrants came in under the Biden administration. They don't know that, like, for example, mainstream media reported that ICE raided a pregnant mom's home. Come to find out, they were going after her husband, who is a trafficker and who had already been deported. So, like, a really
Right.
bad guy. They don't research into that. They just see the headlines. And that's why, like, ultimately, these people, I think, are just generally misinformed, and they need more information, and they need a lot of information to overcome the overwhelming emotional bias that they have.
And for me, I've been reporting on this for 8 years now. The last 4 completely. I've talked to one of my best sources is Oscar Blue, who was traveling through the Darien Gap, which, these guys say they're into climate change, yet the Darien Gap used to be one of the most pristine jungles in the world. And now it's littered with tons of trash and dead bodies, to the point the animals are dying now because there's so many dead bodies in the waterways. We know that people that came into our country weren't just Mexican. They were from China. They were from Afghanistan. They were from the Congo. They were from all over the world. And you can't vet these people. Most people would drop their passports on the other side of the border. They would put on a wristband to basically let the cartel members know that they could cross the border because they were running it. And these people, even the adults, are basically human slaves to the cartels now, because you can't cross that border without a guarantee of about $15,000. So that money needs to get paid back to the cartel. So they literally work as slaves in our country. And part of me is like, so you guys just want us to have slaves? I don't have a lot of mercy on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And it is it is really concerning how close to slavery it does look like. And ultimately, that's if you're benefiting off of that, you're not going to want that to go away, right? Another, I think, really interesting thing I saw when I went to the protests is I grabbed a quote from Barack Obama during his presidency about immigration.
The deporter in chief.
Yeah, exactly. And I asked them about his quote, but I said Donald Trump said it. I didn't say Barack Obama said it. And, most people just kind of rambled about how he's wrong about immigration and blah, 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 blah. But most people aren't even informed on what prominent Democrats believe about immigration. They don't even know that it was Obama that said, that illegal immigrants have broken the law and need to be held accountable. And even Obama's position is get all the criminals out of the, or at least it was his position, get all the criminals out of the country, and everyone who, has been living here for a while and doesn't want to hide in the shadows, you still have to pay a fine. You still need to pay for what you did, and then we'll let you stay here and work and pay taxes and contribute to the economy. And most of those protesters have no clue that that's what Obama advocated for.
And he deported 4 million people.
Right. And he deported a lot of people.
Yeah, more than Trump.
Yeah. And so, there were a couple, intelligent people. I don't want it to seem like all the protesters were just massively uninformed. But there were some
smart people. Stupid smart people.
The stupid smart people. Yeah. They were aware of like, oh yeah, I know Obama deported more than Trump, but Trump's doing it the wrong way. And it's like, okay, well, this is where we can go into the lies from the mainstream media, or the fact that, the children in cages originated from Obama, like all those things. And so I just think a lot of them are really ignorant on that.
Well, and it blows my mind too. Again, the numbers are staggering. 350,000 missing migrant children. 350,000. And don't they care? I'm so mad. Even with this administration, I'm going to be real. If I don't like something that this administration's doing, I'm going to say so. Mm-hmm. Their number one priority right now should be finding these kids, and they're not doing it.
Yeah.
They're not doing it. And I don't know what it's going to take for them to do so, but It's infuriating to me that we know right now, today, this very second, there's a bunch of kids getting raped.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of kids getting
Yeah.
raped, and nobody's looking for them. Nobody's looking for them, and that is not okay to me. So,
Right. Well, and that's the other problem with illegal immigration. If people
yeah.
aren't documented, it becomes a lot harder to actually find these people. If there's not these, regular checkups and accountability, children go missing, and then it becomes really hard to find them. So, yeah, it's definitely something I would hope the Trump administration would be on top of.
Yep, they need to get all the data. They need to bring in independent people that find kids, and they need to release all the data, go after the sponsors. Tara Rodas and Anthony Stevenson or Aaron Stevenson were just on, and they're furious. So we
Yeah,
need to find the
rightfully so.
kids. So, okay, our 30 minutes went super fast. Tell everybody what you're working on currently or what you have coming up, and then where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so I actually am going to be in another Jubilee video here pretty soon.
Oh, good.
So that will be cool. I'll be in the populist versus Republicans one, the one
I
populist
want to be
versus
on with
25
you again. That
Republicans.
was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Being on
fun.
with you.
So I'm hoping to be on some more middle grounds. I know they've sent me some, and some have gotten canceled or postponed. So I'm hoping to be on some middle grounds here soon. I'm hoping to do more of the man on the street type stuff. That stuff I really enjoy because that's what you're asking the average person what they think. And I think a lot of times, like on social media, we can get a false idea of what the average person thinks. Like if you spend too much time on Twitter, you're going to think everyone is morons, and that's just
Well,
not the case.
everybody's on offense, and everybody's just you're
Right.
an idiot. Yeah, so
Exactly.
I do like
So,
a definite conversation, but yeah, I get mad on Twitter. I have to repent to the Lord every day, say, sorry, Lord.
amen.
Sorry, Lord. I love you, God,
Yes.
but I am a sinner for sure.
Yes.
So,
Amen. So
okay.
yeah, I want to do more of those, and then I've also done TikTok debates. So I'll go on TikTok and debate people specifically on the issue of abortion. And so that's an issue that's near and dear to my heart, which is why I chose to debate Dean on it. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm up to in the political sphere. As far as my social media, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. I'm on all of them. So it's just my name, Micah Kunkle, Michahkunkle.
Okay, and so if somebody wants to debate you, they can go to TikTok, right?
Yeah, they can go to TikTok. I've had several people actually reach out to me through my email, which is linked in all my social media accounts, and reach out to me in debates to do debates. And I've done some debates. I've done some debates on Doge and DEI and on Trump. And so yeah, those have all been really, really interesting. But I've posted those on my YouTube channel as well.
Okay, well, my friend, it's so good to see you. You'll have to
Yeah.
come back on again, and I really hope we get cast together because, again, you and Luke,
Yes.
you're my boys. I just adore you.
Yes.
You're super
Oh,
fun. So, but
yeah,
Luke and
thanks,
I
Lori.
always fight over immigration, but that's okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks so
Yeah.
much for coming in today.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. I hope to see you on another Jubilee video soon.
Absolutely, my friend. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
All right, everybody, that's our show for this week. Please stay tuned for next week's episode. We have Jeff Rainforth coming in. Now, Jeff, if you follow him on X, what you're going to see is he was down on our border in the San Diego sector for 7 weeks during the invasion. He also worked with Brian Kolfage, the triple amputee veteran who was building the wall. Do you remember him? Well, he is in prison to this day, and we're going to be pushing for his pardon. Another guest that we have on is Joseph Lombardi. Now, Joseph, I don't know anything about crypto. I'm just going to be honest with you. I am totally dense. I bought some. I have no idea what it does. But yeah, I'm hoping he can explain it to us next week. So if you want to learn about crypto, tune in next week. Bye-bye. If you enjoyed this video, remember to follow me on X at Lori Mills, the number 4CA42, Uncover Cali on Rumble, and Uncover California on YouTube.